Welcome to the People's Parliament, a breakfast morning show coming to you live from ACBN, the channel of champions. It happens here Mondays to Friday. Then my name is Fortune Oyibo. Today is still public holiday, an extended one from Friday. So for a lot of Nigerians, they were probably at home by now. Banks and other public office holders may also be at home, just having a free day and enjoying the public holiday. But we are here at least to tell you what's happening and give you updates on the region going and happening in the nation. And this morning I'm going to be doing that, of course, with Gloria. Gloria, good to have you this morning.
Good morning.
A lovely holiday, I guess.
I don't know about that.
Well, this morning we'll be looking at the issue of corruption. It's been a serious battle against the war against corruption in the country, and the president before he went on this holiday, this Salah break, took our time to pin down some agreement with some countries, and one of the agreement is to see how these foreign countries can help Nigeria return back looted funds and expedite action to extradite and bring back Nigerians who have run away to other countries with Nigerians' looted funds. So we'll take a look at these, some of this agreement being reached by the federal government, and see how it's going to see how it aims to boost the fight against corruption. And also we'll be looking at some of the issues that have been raised by concerns Nigerians with regards to the Nigerian legal system. They have said that the legal system that is being operated now in this country has not been able to help the fight against corruption. A statement made by a religious leader in Ibadan, he said religious leaders have the ability to control corrupt politicians, but I really wonder if that is possible. Looking at some of the commitment of these politicians and the inconsistency sometimes in church, can the politicians actually be controlled by religious leaders? Now we'll be looking at all of that put together, and of course Charlie Boy and his group have also promised to take their protest for the extradition of former Petroleum Resource Minister Alison Madueke. They have decided to take their protest down to United Kingdom for the government of Britain to quickly bring her back to face the wrath of the law here in this country, instead of allowing her to be punished in the UK. We'll be looking at all of that this morning, and of course the People's Parliament begins now. Now it's how do you look at all of these fresh moves being taken by the president, just to boost the fight against corruption and to encourage those who are in the battle?
Well, anything to check treasury looting is a step in the right direction. I think that most of those who have done that in the past, not enough has been done, to check it, and that's why I think we have the continuous, well, if I could use the word, we have the continuous stealing that we have amongst people in government, and I guess even the private organizations. I think the treaty that the president signed is also one, is also a step in the right direction. Whatever it is that will check, that will block the outflow of illicit funds will definitely be a step in the right direction. So I think, well, the government is doing well, if you ask me, for as long as they continue to do the things or sign agreements or treaties with other countries, to check the outflow of funds stolen from Nigeria. I think it is, I know a lot of people will always say, even if those funds were stolen and invested in Nigeria, it's a lot better than actually having to take it out. But the funds being stolen, the funds should not have been stolen in the first place. Whether you would have invested in Nigeria, for me, is immaterial, really, because all of these funds are funds that are supposed to be used for development in Nigeria and to improve the life of Nigerians. So these funds shouldn't have been stolen in the first place. Well, AFCC, let's say they are trying. I mean, we must commend them for whatever little effort they are making, for whatever it is worth. You know, I think they are just getting by.
Well, the essence of that agreement from the president's perspective, he says, is to, you know, kind of fight and remove all forms of obstacles, you know, so that may have been hindering the flow of the fight against corruption. Now he said that agreement is just to make these obstacles removed, because most of the countries that are looted funds have been taken to, before they begin to process and begin to follow due process, a lot of time must have been gone. Now, the essence of signing it is to see how the federal government can ratify all of these, you know, loopholes, and see how these foreign countries can help Nigeria to repatriate looted funds, and also to see how they can extradite these corrupt politicians who are hiding, you know, trying to take their refuge outside. Now, the countries who were there, you know, during this treaty signing, we have the likes of the United States, they were there. A representative from Britain were also there. Chad. Libya, Chad, Niger Republic, they all gathered, you know, to make sure this agreement is signed. Now, how will you look at this move? Talk about taking the war against corruption to a global level, if you look at it that way.
Well, the truth is, a lot of these countries, it's not being present or actually signing these agreements with Nigeria. The truth is, these countries need to protect their interests. Now, if Nigerians steal monies from their country and take them to other countries, you want to ask yourself, it's boosting their own economy. Now, I mean, look at even Britain, for instance. Some of the funds that Ibori stole, they have not been repatriated to Nigeria still. So when you take out lump sums like that from their own economy and return to Nigeria, it's like you're not doing them any good. You know, so I think it's one thing to actually sign these agreements. It's another thing to see that these agreements really work the way that it's supposed to work. And then even, I think it's just not in their favor. That's just the truth of the matter. And even if they do agree, you know, sign these agreements to repatriate these funds, the thing is, when do they repatriate it? They do it for, you know, a long stretch of time, and maybe in bits and pieces. So at the end of the day, the purpose really is defeated, because I think it will make sense if you repatriated £50 million at once than you're repatriating these funds in bits and pieces. All of the monies that the Abachas made away with, not all of it has even been repatriated to Nigeria until now, and that was how many years ago? Since from the 90s. So I think these are just the issues. I believe that in spite of even the agreements, there are technicalities here and there also that will, you know, form the basis for the delay.
All right. The part of the agreement actually being signed is the agreement is on, one of them is agreement on mutual legal assistance in criminal matters. Assisting Nigerians in terms of, you know, criminal issues and helping our legal system, because we have also discovered, especially from findings we got, a strong religious leader actually in Ibadan came up to say that the problem that Nigeria is having in the fight against corruption is our legal system, because the legal system is so corrupt and is so whacked to a point where you know, defense lawyers delay processes. Now they kind of drag this thing and make EFCC not to be able to nip any case in the bud. Now, one of these agreements is to help Nigerians' legal system and help to fight criminality. Now, how do you think that would pan out?
Well, I don't know how another country's legal system will enhance, you know, us, or how an agreement that is signed between us and another country, you know, will help our own legal system. Every country has its own, you know, their own kind of legal system. the ones in other countries may not necessarily function here. I think a lot of what affects, the fight against corruption, well, the technicalities in law, that's true. A lot of the bureaucracy in our judicial system is another thing. Then again, I think the corruption, the system is really rotten. When you go to court, you need to bribe your way, even to, kickstart the case, the whole process. There's a lot of hitches, a lot of hiccups, on the way, and so it makes it really difficult. But again, if you say the lawyers are the ones who are like stalling these cases, well, I do not really think so. I think with the legal process, everything is just a process, and each process has to be followed. I think a lot of what the problem is corruption itself, because from one point to the next, you have to keep dropping money. If you're not dropping money, your file is just kept away somewhere. Sometimes your files just get missing, and then when you give somebody money, the file finds its way out. I think these are just all the issues. If there are technical, hitches on the road, well, these things are delayed. That's just the truth. These things there's a lot of delay in the process, but it's the corruption basically. Otherwise, if you take someone like Ibori, for instance, Ibori was taken to court in Nigeria. He wasn't really found guilty of anything, and then he went to the UK and he was found guilty on several charges, far more than, I think he was charged with about 100 and something, yes. And then not even one he was found guilty in. But in the UK he was found guilty, and he actually went, to jail in that country, and he came back a celebrated person. So I think those are just the things that's the issue. It's not just the judicial system is corrupt. That's the truth.
No, another issue that they actually signed is the fact that there's need for Nigeria and all these foreign countries to hasten up the extradition of corrupt looters. Now, we also saw that in Ibori's case as well, where it took time. They had to, with all of the, all of the arrangement and all of the effort being made by the past administration to see how he was extradited down here. It never worked. Now, with Alice Madueke on the hot burner now, do you think
his funds or himself?
Himself.
No, but Ibori went to jail. He had to complete his term. It doesn't make sense I would even rather that Madueke was tried in the UK, because if she's guilty, she'll be found guilty. If she's brought back to Nigeria, you begin to see what will happen. She has a lot of money, and she'll buy her way through a lot of things. So if she comes back to Nigeria, it's just that perhaps maybe she'll need to deal with the embarrassment and the shame that comes from all the publicity, negative press she'll get. Otherwise, it's even there that we are sure that she'll be found guilty if she's guilty of the charges, against her. So I don't think Nigerians should be in a hurry to have her back. She shouldn't just come back in a hurry. I think she should be tried there.
Charlie Boy and all his group asking her.
They will make all the noise they want to make. How are you sure that when she comes to Nigeria, she'll be found guilty? And if she's found guilty, at the end of the day, we'll probably do plea bargaining. It's a question of return some of the money you stole, and that's just it. How does it help the corruption fight? So many others who find themselves in position, to steal, will steal, knowing fully well that all they will need to do when their time comes is just return some of the funds. The ones they have, or the ones they'll keep for themselves, is definitely going to be more than what they are going to return. So I don't think people should be in a hurry, to call for her to be extradited to Nigeria.
All right, let's have the phone numbers open now so we can get reactions from viewers and, of course, from contributors. We're looking at this issue of corruption and the fight that's been enhanced now by the president signing of some bilateral agreement with some nations, Switzerland, United States, Britain, Chad, Niger, Cameroon, and other neighboring countries to see how Nigerians' fight against corruption can be boosted. Now, the essence of the signing is to see how obstacles that have been hindering and impeding the smooth flow of the fight against corruption, all those obstacles be removed. And that was the move the president made recently in Abuja during the signing ceremony that was done in the presence of all of these delegates. Now, we have also looked at some of the agreements that was entered into by the federal government and these nations. One of them is to see how Nigerians' legal system can be brushed up by some of these international organizations, and they also said the agreement should be on mutual legal assistance in civil and commercial matters. Now, another point is agreement on the transfer of sentenced persons, and that is one of the content of the agreement. Transfer of sentenced persons, bringing them back and transferring them back to Nigerian prisons
to serve their terms.
Serve their terms in their motherland.
Why? Because the the prison facilities there are a lot more comfortable than here. Well, the idea is if they are found guilty, they let them serve their sentences there, and they are brought back to Nigeria. If they are found guilty here, they should also be made to serve their sentences. No matter how beautiful or comfortable a prison system is, the mere fact that your freedom is just very, very limited is enough punishment, for anybody. Really, I think so. So, but yes, it would be good for like Ibori. Well, Ibori served his term there. He's come back to Nigeria. Nothing really has been said about his matter again. I would have thought that he would have been in court again right now. We need to make people who steal money is like that. We need to make their lives very uncomfortable, unbearable, really, really difficult, so that those who aspire to steal will, I think it will serve as a deterrent, really.
Oh, well,
so many people will need to think twice.
That might be possible in other advanced climes, but in Nigeria we saw how he was celebrated.
Yeah, that's
as a matter of fact,
thing.
he has been making political statements.
Yes.
Which is to tell you the level at which we condone anything in this country.
Yes, the system is decayed in Nigeria.
So how do you deal with that?
Well, how do you deal with it? Until Nigerians learn to stop worshipping money, stop celebrating money, celebrating criminals, it will just go on. There's no two ways about it. Nobody wants to know how you make money. Everybody just wants, to worship you if you have the money, and that's why corruption is even good. What about ritual killings? All of these negative things people do to get money is just because you are nothing if you don't have money in Nigeria. And if you're in government and you haven't stolen, I mean, you're just a fool. That's the way people will look at you. So the more you steal, the more you'll be celebrated in Nigeria. So why won't people steal? And I think it was somebody who talked about the extended family system. And all that. When you have a lot of people who are depending on you one way or the other, your basic salary will not be enough to cater for all of these people, and so you probably call it encouraged to steal here and there, so you'll be able to meet the needs of so many people who are looking onto you for all those kinds of things. So, but I think the thing really is we need to change, our orientation about money. We need to learn to be a bit more contented with, what God has blessed us with.
Now, it's also on the news, and among some of the obstacles actually that was listed out by this EFCC representative, he says sometimes lack of cooperation between states, federal and local government not to release certain informations have also stood as a hindrance. I was just looking at some of these little things that have made the fight against corruption impossible. Now, even though the EFCC are trying their best, but they have also been pointed out some of these issues that they feel have not really helped them in any way. The federal government finds it difficult, from what he's saying, to get information from states where these people worked, and I also find it difficult to even get relevant information from local governments. And when things become so tight and so difficult like that, it makes job very difficult to assess. Now, how will this issue be addressed? Now, we all know that the fight against corruption is not a one.
Yeah, it's not a one-man fight.
It's not a one-man fight. It has to be. It has to be done, wholesomely. It has to be done, with joint fistedness to make sure that everyone is involved. Now, if you begin to have pockets of frictions here and there, hindrances here and there, the fight, will it go anywhere?
Well, the fight is not going. It's not even making any serious headways in the first place, and that's why, in spite of all the noise that's been made about fighting corruption, there hasn't been even one conviction that has been seen to the logical conclusion. It's 2 years plus since the fight against corruption started. Now, it's difficult to have this kind of cooperation, or have people give you the information that you need. Don't forget that when you give information that will likely lead to the conviction of somebody, the likelihood is that someone is going to route against the person who gave the information, and then at the end of the day, the person's life could actually be in danger. So you don't want to put your life at risk because you want to help convict somebody else. Even if people know, because you could actually say people should know the dangers in corruption, all of the things that corruption has led us to. That's where we are right now. But even if people knew the implication of all these monies that are being stolen, and then you want to actually give information to help retrieve that money or convict these persons, you need to take your life into consideration. I think that would be the basic thing. When you give this information one way or the other, even if you give this information behind closed doors, one way or the other, the information will get to the people you gave the information against, and they could just be after your life. I don't know how serious even witness protection is, even in Nigeria. So if you're not going to, even if they protect you for a while, for how long can you rely on the protection of the state? So people will not be forthcoming in giving protections that could actually lead to the conviction of anyone. So I think to that extent, of course, it's limiting the fight against corruption.
Now, we are also told that the federal government has done a lot to make sure that they actually sign this agreement, and to see how they can also help in moving this country forward. There are other issues that were signed. Talk about this issue of agreement with regards to stolen properties, intellectual properties. Now, these is a whole different angle that Nigerians have not really considered. A lot of intellectual properties, due to corruption, have been stolen. Audio properties, talk about videos, talk about musicals. A lot of them have been stolen from people. And the government is saying that with this treaty and this agreement being signed, all of these things will be checked and reduced. Now, we do not put that as it is not a heavy agreement. And when things like that in Nigeria, when they are too heavy, you tend to forget some of this content. Now, we also know that the major fight now is to see how looted funds are repatriated back to the country, to see how corrupt looters are made to face the wrath of the law. But talk about intellectual properties.
Well,
how will that pan out?
I really don't know. I'm not sure the focus really is on that. Maybe because they had to sign an agreement, they just lumped everything, together. I am not very sure that is government's focus right now. All of this, there's just been an abuse of, this intellectual property things. Of course, a lot of times you get people's works being used without permission, without any kind of, payment before these things are used. It's everywhere. You play someone's music, you blast it on the streets, you get it on media houses playing and things like that. Well, I think it will take a while for that to actually yield serious results. There's this body that's been I'll try to remember that's been working with people in media for a while, actors and actors, musicians and things like that, writers of books and all that. And all of those things have been have been in the works for a while. So I guess, well, this agreement, perhaps it will help in some way. But I think that that's really not Nigeria's focus at the moment.
The role of religious leaders have also been questioned, and they've also been urged to put more efforts. Meaning, apart from putting more effort, they've also been urged to see how they can speak to corrupt politicians and see how they can speak to their conscience, and so that they can reduce this looting. But what worries me more,
so they can reduce or they can stop?
They can reduce or stop, whichever way. At least we need answers. Now, reducing or stopping, can a religious leader pull through with such? Don't forget that some of these politicians hardly go to church, and if they do it once in a while, maybe during Thanksgiving, during Christmas, at least occasionally. But how does a religious leader really have access to these politicians when they are voted into power?
Well, I believe that they do. A lot of them have, most of these people, you always hear them say, my pastor, my bishop, my prophet. You always hear them say these things. These politicians, well, they always have people praying for them, whether the Christians or the Muslims. They always have their pastors. But it's one thing for the pastor to say something. It's another thing for you to actually listen to what your preacher is saying. But again, I do believe, it is my sincere opinion, that our religious leaders are not speaking as strongly as they should, because whether you like it or not, a lot of these stolen funds end up in our churches and in our mosques. Now, if you have a politician or a thief in government who is bringing some of these monies, from time to time he brings a few millions as offerings, from time to time he brings a few millions as prophet offering, you don't want to tell him stop stealing. You don't want to tell him, I don't want this money, stop bringing me stolen money. Because we know, and I think our preachers also know some of these people who are stealing, and they bring these monies into these religious houses, but nobody says anything. Their voices are not, they are not strong when they are saying these things to them. That's if they say anything to them at all. Because if your son in Christ brings you money, that is stolen money, you should be able to rebuke him and refuse that money, because you're concerned about him, you're concerned about his spiritual life, you're concerned about his soul. You understand? But I am not very sure that a lot of our preachers are doing that, and that's because their mouths have been shut with the monies that they are getting.
Well,
because if they are speaking up, again, for the ones who are speaking, I'm not saying that our preachers are not saying anything, but it's one thing to say, it's another thing for the person. It's a choice whether you want to do what scripture demands that you do. It's just a choice. But I still do believe that they are not speaking up as they should, because for people who are truly ardent members of their faith, you will listen to a preacher has a lot of influence on his followers. So if you are saying things and repeatedly you're always preaching against it, with the way things are in Nigeria, with the fight against corruption at this time, I mean, if you're speaking up like that, people will be very wary of stealing as much as they are stealing.
Well,
I think so. Or I don't know, if you were a preacher
it's more of a self-willingness thing. Because even though a preacher comes and he preaches repentance, some people might just sit down and say it's a choice, because even the Bible also gave you choice to choose between life and death. So fighting the war against corruption and also listening to instructions from religious leaders is also a choice. Like you said, they can either accept or they refuse it. At most or at best, they tell you, I'm not coming to your church again. Since you're coming so hard on my activities, you're coming so hard on the things I do. But will you blame the religious leader who is more or less spends more time in his church and pay little attention to some of what these politicians, they don't even know where and how they run their affairs. All they just see them is once in a while they're in church. Now, will you blame him for accepting such offerings?
No, it's not that. Some of these people may not come to church, but they're always in communication with their pastors or with their
fellow church member, isn't it? So
for
pastors, they are a kind of informations are restricted from them, so they barely even know some of these their members. I talk of a church member that has a pastor that has thousands of crowd. He don't even know all of them.
That's true.
So how will you know how to really address a corrupt politician when he comes to the church? He hears the word that everybody hears, and he doesn't listen to it, or he doesn't apply it.
If you were a governor and you were a member of a church, the preacher will know that the governor is a member of his church. That's what I think. I think our leaders go to church, they go to mosque, and anybody who is well placed, one way or the other, it gets back, to the pastor or to the bishop or to the archbishop or to the the imams. It gets back to them that this person is a member of this church. They may not give you a special seat or anything, but one way or the other, you will know. These people carry security personnel around. A governor will normally go around in a convoy. So it's difficult to tell me that you do not know that.
But that is
the person. Okay, yes, that is a governor. You have members of the House, you have senators, you have the members of the House of Assembly. These people are not invisible. They attend these functions here and there. If you do know, a preacher can actually call that person into his office and actually speak with him. It's possible. You can even preach from your pulpit. It's God or the Holy Spirit who will do the convicting in the heart of the person. But speak against this evil that these people are doing. I think if they are speaking up much more than they are doing, a lot of these things would have reduced at least. Maybe it won't be as bad as it is. They need to, talk some more so that these people, I know a lot of them have their conscience is dead and buried, but who knows, their conscience may just resurrect if our preachers are speaking up more. Everybody has something, a spiritual influence. There's something that influences everybody spiritually. But if that's someone or something, is silent, the person just continues. If you know somebody who's been in the press, it's on TV, it's in the papers that this person has done this XYZ thing. As his preacher, you shouldn't keep silent. You should be able to send for that person and try to get, to the root of the matter, at least hear his own side. But when these people are coming around their spiritual fathers and dropping monies here and there, it just has a way of, shutting the mouth of the people who should speak. And if your father is not telling you what you're doing is wrong, who will tell you?
What about the place of information dissemination now? That has also been regarded as a challenge. We know that the Minister of Finance came up with the whistleblowing policy thing. But has that really been effective in the fight against corruption? Has it really boosted the fight and encouraged the EFCC to do more? Because they are still complaining that citizens of this country hardly give out information. And they can't work without information. So how has that whistleblowing policy been effectively implemented, and how has it boosted the fight against corruption?
Well, I think according to what the Minister of Finance said, some time ago, it has been, it's picking up. So far, I think if I'm getting the figure right now, I think she said that about 11 billion or so has been recovered through the whistleblowing policy. So I think for whatever it is, what 11 billion is not so much, but it's still a lot, you know. So I think the policy, well, it's good, but well, we are also recovering little by little. But I think the challenge we will have is people actually coming forward to speak.
When they know that their safety is not guaranteed.
Yes. It's the same thing. Their safety is not guaranteed. The state cannot protect you. And you know what? If you will do it without your name being mentioned, it will be a different thing. People will actually come out and speak. People will make reports. People will write petitions. But when your name is going to be mentioned, because that is the fear. If I tell you something, this person did this, then you investigate it and get to the root of it. Maybe it turns out to be true. Monies are recovered. The person is actually convicted. That's different. Now, when your name will be mentioned ultimately, or even if it's not supposed to mention, but somebody will behind closed doors mention you and point fingers that you were the one who gave them away, where do you think that person will run? Nigeria will just not be enough for that person to hide. The person will probably have to run away from this country because that person's life will be in danger. His family will be in danger. That's just the truth. I mean, I know there are a few people who will exploit the policy to, you know, give wrong information. I think a few people are being tried for giving wrong information. But again, that in itself will make people not to want to give information. If at the end of the day, the information you thought was right turns out not to be right, and then you send that person to prison, then people won't even, you know, at best you will investigate. If it turns out to be false, well, you just let it pass. But if people are going to be sentenced, that's going to be a major limitation, you know, to the fight against corruption. But I think the fear to one's life will be a major challenge.
Well, that policy in itself came out well when it was being churned out, and it's believed that with the way it's been planned, Nigerians are supposed to come out in mass to say one or two things, and with the monetary value being attached to it.
Now, the minister says that about 11 billion or so has been recovered. We've not heard about anybody who actually got the 5%. That's another thing, because I think it was supposed to be like a motivation.
But even at
to motivate people to come out and speak.
Do you expect the ministry to come up openly and say this, and the people would, maybe they must have done it quietly, so that these people don't get to be seen collecting such money, and don't get to, you know, pin them down, trace them. You know how.
But if people are not sure they are even going to get it, it's just like the police telling you, if you can give any useful information that will lead to the arrest of so kidnapper, they will give you 1 million. Do you think they ever give anybody anything? You go and risk your life and give information, and then they point hands at you and gun you down. I don't think they give monies like that. I don't know if they do, but I do not think they are reliable, and I do not think that they will give. It's still the same Nigerians. The Nigerian system is one that you just do not trust what they say. That's the truth. If at the end of the day you're supposed to get about 5%, the person that is supposed to pay you will probably negotiate with you so that he gives you 2% or 2.5 and tell you, you know, some of them who will work out the whole thing for you, you will need to settle them and blah 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 blah. That's how it works here. So I see that, you know, as a major challenge, you know, to the fight of corruption through the whistleblowing policy.
The whole idea of this fight is to see how Nigeria is, you know, totally rid of corruption. But 2 years down the line, if we go through and we're going to look at the efforts so far, what we've just been able to, well, what you will discover is just the one-sided fight, one. The second part is the fact that you still see the drive with which this administration started. The drive has gradually, the tempo has gradually dropped and reduced. And this mostly has been attributed to the little bottlenecks that EFCC is still facing. And these bottlenecks have really not been addressed. So the next 2 years of this administration, will they still be able to achieve anything meaningful if these things are not addressed?
Well, I hope that the issues will be addressed from the confirmation of Magu as EFCC chairman. That's still in the works. He's still in acting capacity, but really I do not think it affects his job. It's just name. I believe he's acting in his capacity as chairman of EFCC. It's just a formality thing. Yes, indeed, the drive for me, I believe, has dropped considerably. There are threats to their lives. We in Rivers State, some of those EFCC officials have been shot at. We saw the same thing happen in Abuja. Now they have to get protection for themselves as well as for their families in other states in the country. You do not expect that you will fight corruption without a fight coming from corrupt officials. So yes, there's a fight back. It has affected now a lot of the judiciary is, they are like they are targets, if I could use that word. They have also been involved. There's a whole lot that corruption has touched. So there's a whole lot of people, fighting corruption in Nigeria. Well, I just want to believe that if the president is still, passionate about the fight, and with all of these agreements also that have been signed with other countries, I believe that we might make a headway. We just may make a headway. But the truth is, corruption has come to stay. Even amongst those fighting corruption, amongst the officials, they are also corrupt themselves. It's difficult for anyone to convince me that EFCC officials are not corrupt. Like Hadley Chase will say, everyone has a price. You place price tags on people. When you make people offers, they cannot. No, there's nobody who doesn't have a price tag. If you make someone an offer the person cannot receive, cannot refuse, they will not refuse. So I believe also that the EFCC officials, a lot of them too, will be corrupt. I will not be convinced that they are not corrupt. Who knows, even maybe from leadership. It just depends on the price that you put, on a particular person. I believe that if people, for instance, in the EFCC, if you have relatives or relatives of relatives or friends of relatives and things like that who are going to be prosecuted for corruption, I mean, in your position as an official in EFCC, you will try to look for a way to cover it up. So the system in itself is corrupt. It will take so many years before we are finally able to eradicate or even stem down corruption. But of course, it doesn't mean that we should stop fighting. We must keep fighting until we get the victory.
The war against corruption has been on, and every administration that comes on board comes with a different vision, a different mandate, different drive. This administration came with the drive of fighting corruption. But we've seen that the war against corruption has really been so heavy and has really been so strong. And the president's fight have also been impeded by a lot of factors, including the legal system, including the judiciary, including politicians. Virtually all areas is affected. And in order to make the fight more effective, the federal government said, okay, let's sign an agreement with foreign countries so that they don't even allow corrupt politicians come into that place in the first place. But we, just like Nigeria, we woo investors into this country. All of these countries like Dubai, Niger Republic, Chad also have their trade, Minister of Trade and Investment, who goes to other countries to woo investors. Now, corrupt politicians are one of these investors that you win into your country. Now, if you brought them into your country to invest
From other countries.
and they come to your country and they invested large sums of money
That they stole from their country.
Now, how will that pan out when, number one, this investor is coming with the mindset of being an investor, and you are accepting him as an investor, not as a corrupt politician? You don't even know how he even got the money in the first place. So how will such countries who were present at that meeting be able to identify who is a corrupt politician among Nigerian investors and who is not a corrupt politician among them, so as to know when to say yes to their business proposals and when to say no? Will they ever know that these are corrupt politicians?
Well, that will be a limitation. Besides, if someone is, you probably need to investigate these persons, and when you do investigate them and you find out that he probably stole money from his country, but his stolen money will boost your economy, are you going to send him away?
But the truth is, how many countries even does investigation? How many of them? Now, Nigerians go to Dubai.
They probably do.
Borotai has an estate. The chief of army staff now in presently is having an estate in Dubai, and a lot of issues have been raised, but the president has not said anything about it. Well, he's still in active capacity, he's still working, no one is investigating him. Now, will you tell me that the Dubai personnel or corruption officials, whatever, will now come to Nigeria and say, we are investigating this fellow, we want to see what he's doing? Number one, he's still in active service. It's not like he's retired. He's still working. So there is still be the tendency of saying, okay, after all, he's working. After all, he's still...
The question is, what does he earn? What he earns, is it enough for him to, have an estate?
Because most of these people we have who are working as politicians, most of them do it as a, they just do it. They have other things they do. All this one, they say, okay, politics is my hobby, it's my career. It's not career. They have other things attached to it, because by the time you look...
Those other things that they are doing, did they start those other things from with the, with the monies they stole from government? That's the thing. The thing is, why the fight against corruption will not fly, seriously in Nigeria? It's because the fight is targeted at people. That's the truth. Jobrin came up to speak against his corrupt members. What happened to him? Even the president did not intervene. He did not say anything, considering the fact that the main drive or the main thrust of his administration is the fight against corruption. I thought he would pick it up from there. But all the names he called, all the fingers pointed, what has happened? Nothing. EFCC has not even investigated. So how do you claim to be fighting corruption when you're not fighting? I mean, the people who are even out of government, that's a different case. For those who are still there now, in spite of what your president is doing, if you're found culpable, you should be dealt with severely. But no one is saying anything to these persons. So at the end of the day, it's just... I mean, most successive governments, they just come. There's always one campaign against corruption. Has he checked anything? Obasanjo started this EFCC, and yet his government was acclaimed to be one of the most corrupt. So what was the essence of the corruption fight? Even at that time, Nuhu Ribadu, according to what Nigerians were saying, was that he was just the president at that time was using him to fight targets. It's the same thing. If you're fighting corruption, I think you must begin, any kind of fight must begin from within. So I think that people from within government, first of all, let them sanitize government. The president needs to make it clear to the people in his administration, look, you're either for me or against me. If you are found in any kind of corrupt practice, you are against my government. And Nigerians have continued to, they mention this name, they say this. Yes, nobody says that immediately they mention a name, you go attack those people. But you must begin to investigate, you must investigate. It's a laugh when some people will tell you they are not corrupt. Like one of the ministers, at his screening has said that he has never taken a bribe, he has never done any act of corruption. Even the way the senators laughed was like, you understand, it was this man must be funny. Because everybody knew it was a lie.
Well,
you know, so
you see corruption. He might not see it the way.
Corruption is corruption. When you take monies that is not supposed to be yours, you've stolen, you obtained it through corrupt practices. I mean, there's just no two ways. What is wrong is wrong. What is just wrong is wrong. So there's no good name for it. There's no way you can polish it. That's it.
All right. Before we round up now, most of the agreements signed were agreements to make Nigeria's fight against corruption, boosted, make it more effective. But some have said that I think it's high time we begin to look for those who are sound morally and those who are sound spiritually for them to get political positions. And now we all know Nigeria and the system. Can that principle fly?
No, it doesn't make sense. Who is a good Nigerian and who is who is a good Christian and who is a pious Muslim? I don't know if they exist in Nigeria. When I hear more Christians should get into politics, and then they become maybe the system will be sanitized. Even the church is corrupt. Muslims are also corrupt. It's everywhere. So if you have people stealing from church, you think if you put them in an office they will not steal, but of course they will. A lot of our Christians, born again, spirit-filled, they get into politics, and in just a matter of time, in a few weeks, in a few months, you just don't know them anymore. They just become like they are in the world. So at the end of the day, I think, well, God will need to sanctify a lot of our people. The Nigerians just need to know that it is wrong to steal funds that are meant for everyone. It is the Commonwealth of Nigerians. It should be used for the benefit and for the welfare of Nigerians. It is wrong to amass so much wealth. People need to realize that, Bible says it is appointed unto man once to die and then the judgment. We need to know that there is life after here. We need to know that even all of the funds that people steal, they will not even go anywhere with it. The painful part about all these monies that are stolen, a lot of these people, they will leave the monies, and at the end of the day to get into the hands of people who did not even know how that wealth was gotten. Contentment, I think, is the key.
All right, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We do hope that we'll come your way again tomorrow on this program. The People's Parliament will bring you another edition of our talk. And of course, the program continues throughout the week, and we want to say thank you for your time. My name is Remains Fortunate.
And I'm Gloria Ebeji Ondakolo. Please join us again tomorrow.
ACBN has a lot of programs lined up for you. Just stay glued to the station and you will never regret it. Have a wonderful day and bye for now.
Now, today.